Welcome again to another episode of the Creating Legacy Through Community Service podcast. My name is Sophia Chu, and I am your host this evening. I'm going to introduce you to a very good friend of mine, Medvis Jackson. He's a born Detroiter, and of course, there's always a Caribbean hitch to this, right? So his dad is Jamaican. I'm going to give him the opportunity to introduce himself to us, tell us a little bit about his family background and the work that he has been doing in the Caribbean for the past 3 or 4 years. He's also going to circle back and let us know the work that he is doing in economic development here in Metro Detroit. And of course, he's going to tell us what creating legacy through community service means to him. So I ask you, stick and stay, share this video, subscribe to the channel, like, and leave some nice comments. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Here is another episode of the Creating Legacy Through Community Service Conversations. My name is Sophia Chu, and I am your host. So we're going to have an in-depth, kind of fun conversation with this young man right here. Hope you like his hair. He's working on the dread thing. I'm not sure how it's working out for him, but we're going to see by the end of the summer how it looks if he doesn't cut it off. But I met this young man. I was about to say youngster.
37, yeah.
Jesus, you're that old?
37 now.
Father Jesus. So I met him quite a few years ago, and it was really through a business networking session we were doing with ABISA, the African Bureau of Immigration and Social Affairs, with Gregoire. And then you guys came in and kind of gave some information to our community members how to start businesses and what resources that they were. And then you and I became fast friends.
Yep.
And I found out a little bit of your story that I'm hoping that you'll share with our audience today. But first, I want you to formally introduce yourself, your government name, if you have a nickname, and your connection to the Caribbean.
So my name is Medvis. I was born and raised in Detroit. Grew up on the west side. My mom, I always joke that I'm first generation American and also like seventh generation American. My mom's family's from the south. My dad's family is from St. Catherine, Clarendon, Jamaica. My cricket nickname is Jocko.
I knew you Jamaica, and there's gotta be a nickname up in there. Jocko. Why Jocko?
Just Jackson. Last name's Jackson, so Jocko.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I try not to use too much. I have an uncle in Portmore who goes by that. So.
Yeah.
But cricket, I didn't pick it. They just called me Jocko. So.
Okay.
So
tell us a little bit about. I know you travel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember the first time you went to Jamaica and what it felt like after being raised as a Jamaican?
As a Yankee.
Right.
Yeah. So growing up, we always would live vicariously to my dad's trips because my parents didn't have a lot of money. And so for 4 kids to go back to Jamaica, 6 people, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember there's a gentleman, Linville Dennis, who used to have a travel agency at the corner of Audi Drive and 7 Mile. I remember going to the office and them arranging the flights, Air Jamaica. And
that's a long time ago.
Right, Air Jamaica, right? And being such a big deal. And then getting there, and we obviously pack up a ton of stuff to go back as well. And the first thing that struck me was when I got into my aunt's car. She picked us up at Sangster, and I got into the car, and I was like, wait, why am I in the passenger seat? Why am I in the driver's seat? Why am I in the driver's seat? And that threw me off. And
how old were you?
I had to be like 8.
Okay.
7 or 8, yeah. And so it's like on one hand, it's a whole other world, literally driving on the other side of the street. And then we went to Burger King.
Right.
We went to Burger King. The first meal on the island was Burger King.
Right.
And so it's like that contradiction of like, it's so like wherever you go, it's very similar to everywhere now. But at the same time, it's very different. And that's one thing I love about travel is like, oh yeah, it'd be fine. Like, there's Wi-Fi. People, you greet people. People have customs, and they even know a lot of the same TV shows we all know in the United States. But at the same time, it's very different. Jamaica is a very different country, and especially when you leave this big city, as you know.
Right.
The pots will get ticked. Yeah, the food changed everything. So everything. So that was my first experience. It was good.
Okay. Tell us a little bit of history behind. We're going to talk about your dad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how he introduced you to the Caribbean community here in Metro Detroit. You can name drop locations. You can name drop people. You can name drop timelines.
Right. And like anything in life, there's a dialectic, right? So there's contradiction. So on one hand, my dad was very Jamaican, but he also was very Detroit. Like he loved the city. So he moved to the United States in the late 70s. He came here for seminary. There's a famous story from his sermons where he would talk about how he told his mom, I don't need this Jamaican stuff. Like, I'm going to America. I don't need it. He gets to his dorm room in Illinois, and he realizes as an international student, you get there earlier than the other students. And so everything's closed because you're out in just, probably 45 minutes outside of Chicago. So that's rural by 1970 standards, right? That's rural. And so everything's closed. There's nothing to eat. And so he's like, well, I just have nothing to do but unpack. And so he starts unpacking. And while he was in Jamaica, his mom kept trying to put food into his bag, and he kept taking stuff out. She tried to put more stuff. He's taking, I don't need this. I'm going to America. I'm good. And as he started unpacking, he started smelling food. And he's like, no, it's just me. I'm hungry. And so I'm just thinking of food. And as he starts digging deeper into his clothes, he's pulling out fried fish. He's pulling out bami. He's pulling out black cake, all this stuff. And he actually had enough to feed some of the other international students on his floor. And he always, I think he told us that story because your history will always serve you. And you think you can also nostalgize or have a incomplete understanding of what's ahead of you. And so I think he always told that story. Even in a Christian context where, how God provides. But I think just politically and culturally, he always wanted us to know what growing up in Jamaica was like. And even though he wanted us to, I think, because he had a very idealized understanding of the United States, especially like if you understand Jamaica at that time.
We all did.
Right. So Jamaica at that time was still very color conscious. I would even go on to say racist. So Jamaicans, we have this thing we like to say that Jamaica doesn't have racism. I disagree with that. And racial politics are a thing in Jamaica. It's just very different than the United States. And so you have to understand that, like, for a family that farmed, was a black family, although I think his dad had an Indian parent. As a black family in Jamaica, there was a lot that you didn't have access to, especially as dark-skinned black people in Jamaica. There was a lot of doors that were just shut without you even trying to open the door, right? There was no chance. And so he came to America knowing that I could do more here.
Got it.
And so I think he wanted us to have that pride in our country, but at the same time, he also thought we were soft, and we were soft. And so he always would tell us about how, having to take the train from to Spanish Town, growing up farming, so he would do farm chores in the morning before going to Spanish Town. And just, and I think as an adult growing up, he passed away in 2012, and as an adult going back to visit Spanish Town or going to their town in Old Harbor and seeing the conditions that Jamaicans still live in, you do understand like why he was the way he was. In the Detroit context, he was a proud member of the Michigan Cricket Club. That club was over 100 years old, so it's a shame that it didn't carry on. And my brother and I have talked about reviving it. Like, we still have the old patches, we have some of the old jerseys. And the reason why we thought about reviving it is because when my dad came to the United States, that's where you met your first mechanic. That's where you met your first lawyer.
Right.
It was, funnily, there's a family, the Ali family. They're Pakistani. I think they have Pakistani, half Lebanese. But we found out that his dad played for the rival cricket club at Belle Isle. Their team was a Pakistani team, and this was mostly Jamaican, Afro-Caribbean. Mostly Afro-Caribbean. Actually, I had some Chinese and some Indian players as well who were Caribbean. So they would go to war, but that was also a bit of an oasis for these young men coming as single men to the Western Hemisphere from Pakistan, from Jamaica,
from wherever, right?
From wherever.
Yeah.
There are some. There was a few Bajans, some Grenadians in the club as well. And so we've thought about like reviving Michigan Cricket Club. Because I'm a cricket fanatic. I watch the World Cup before I watch the Super Bowl, and then it's especially in an era where it is so scary to be an immigrant, or I would say an migrant, right? Having a safe place, and so that's what the Michigan Cricket Club was. They played at Belial, in between the casino and the water fountain. Before it was Caribbean, it was actually Australians and English people that were playing there. And then over time, with the waves of immigration, it became more black and brown. So Indo-Pakistan, Indian, Pakistani, and Jamaican, and other Caribbean, right? And so, what is it like to not have that space? And I've honestly met a lot of Jamaicans in Pakistan. There are a lot of Jamaicans in the city, a lot, and there is no place to welcome them. We don't have the clubs that we used to have. We have organizations, but I think they're in transition, a lot of them.
And the concept is different too, right? So that we're gonna hit that at the back end when we talk about creating legacy. Quick question: why did your dad leave from Illinois to come to Michigan?
My mom.
Okay. So it's interesting,
indirectly my mom, but yes, continue.
Okay. It's so interesting. A lot of people are Caribbean people that I have spoken to on this platform. One of the questions I ask is, why Detroit? Why Michigan? A majority of them come here because they either fell in love with somebody from Detroit, or there was another Caribbean person from their homeland that was here and they came here to marry them or whatever. So
that's both. So actually, their neighbors from Old Harbor had migrated for the auto industry years before. She was actually his nurse in Jamaica, the school nurse, I believe, at Jago, And so when on breaks, he would come to visit. It was a lot of people would know them too. Owen Fraser and Sybil Fraser. They were iconic in the Caribbean community here. Owen Fraser, he's not used to using his first name, but Mr. Fraser, he played for Michigan Cricket Club as well. So he passed, and I wonder if his kids still have. I know he has some kids in Toronto, and he has old pictures of Michigan Cricket Club, talking about 1940s and 50s and 60s. And it's a shame that we don't have to document those things, but he would come on breaks here. Mr. Fraser taught at the Detroit Bible College.
Okay.
My dad's father was a pastor. My dad was here for seminary, and then my mom's dad was also a pastor, so he worked at Detroit Bible College. And then coincidentally, years before my mom's family had done a mission trip to Jamaica, my mom actually went to Jamaica and met him. Didn't know who he was.
Right.
So they reconnected in Detroit, essentially. And so he actually moved to England there, and then my mom, they dated via letter. And they ended up getting married and moving to Bermuda. So my oldest sister was born in Bermuda, actually.
Wow. Yeah. That is like some cool things, bro.
So they lived in Bermuda,
So, as you're talking about the cricket and putting together a cricket club, have you guys considered even just start by putting together the memorabilia and have a show? Like almost, how they have these art shows? Actually have a historical exhibit of what cricket was in Detroit back in the day.
Yeah.
And then see how many people feed into it, right? And then you can get members for your cricket club.
Absolutely. No, I would. That's something that's a bucket list. Something I've thought about. I've not put a plan behind it. There's a good family that I still talk to. One of the daughters is still around, the McPhersons, and so he's still around. There was a guy from Barbados. I'm blanking on his name now. But he's still around. He's in WAA.
Who Les
Burnett?
Burnett, that's my boy. Yeah.
I hear Mr. Michael Barkley still around. He was a longtime principal at Cody High School.
Okay.
So I wonder who's still around. Limble Dennis is Mr. Limble Dennis is still around. So we should definitely do it.
Yeah,
it's part of our history.
We would be willing to work with you. Even if it's just on the planning portion of it, right? And then assist with it, because I like that concept of doing an exhibit, because unfortunately, there is not enough of our elders left to tell those stories. So how do we now capture that stuff and make it into legacy? And that's one of the reasons why we started this platform. You know, how do we now take these stories from our parents and our grandparents and move it forward to our children and grandchildren?
Yeah, we should definitely start recording narrative like Mr. Dennis could talk stories about.
Absolutely. Send me his contact information and I'll reach out to him and see if he's interested in being interviewed. For sure.
We'll do it right after this.
Okay.
And one thing I'll say too, that it was a whole vibe out there. Like, it was funny, my dad was a pastor, so after like food was served and the reggae music started coming on and the beer started coming out, we would always pieced out. But I knew that it was a gathering spot for the community too at that spot. And Bilal was also Bilal in the 90s, right? So it's very different than it is now. But yeah, it's just, one thing about, I think one thing I would say too is there's a historian he's passed away now, from Antigua, Tim Hector, and he talks about how cricket, and I would say for better or for worse, cricket disciplined the generation of Caribbean, right? It's a very odd sport. It's a very antiquated sport, or anachronistic if you want to be polite. There's a lot of rules for rules' sake, but it very much is a game that is about process. It's a game about preparation. You just don't pick up and play cricket. You have to have wanted to play cricket, right? Versus where football is very informal, basketball is very informal. And so it's interesting also how the cricket club, the generations, you saw how it changed with the immigration waves. And so you had guys who were very highly educated to guys who were coming who are doing farming work before, farming work in the United States, or farm work in Canada before they joined the club. It's a microcosm, I think, of how the Caribbean community has evolved in Detroit, how in the immigration patterns. And one thing I would say too with the Caribbean community is that because so many of us have left the city, then we have to be very intentional about maintaining institution, because people were near each other by default. And I think like in Brooklyn and Queens and London and Miami, you'll see it's built in, and so people don't think about the fact that like you can lose a lot of this culture. And I think in Detroit,
and that's what we're struggling currently. We are really struggling with that currently, because a lot of times, because they move out of the city, or what the microcosm is that brought them together, whether it's for family or for food or for fun or whatever it is, it's so hard now to have that welcome in place where everybody goes through. We do have some events that, you'll see folks come in for example, the picnic or the festivals, where you would see generations of family members coming in for those. But unfortunately, those events are dying too. So my thing is to hand it off to you guys while teaching you how to make it better than what it is currently, right? So I would love to work with you on, putting together an exhibit of what historic, you know what I mean?
Everybody
what cricket used to look like.
Hold us to it.
And if I tell you, no, Sammy, hold you to it. Please.
Please, next question.
So that being said now, I want to talk a little bit about your current connection with the Caribbean outside of Jamaica, because I see the work that you do when it comes to visiting. Me not say I go on vacation but me know say I do some vacation things when I'm there. But visiting, for example, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, with the concept of bringing that micro loan kind of a conversation to them to help them pull together whatever their dreams are and turn it into a business. So talk a little bit about that.
So my interest in microlending, so years ago I told myself, before I'm 50, I want to get into angel investing. So that's where you're doing seed stage investing with companies, the average check size is like $30,000, $40,000. So that's something that is a lifelong pursuit of mine, is to get personal wealth and business wealth, get to the point where I can do that. And during COVID, you had a lot of time to read and do whatever. And I just thought about all the restrictions here in the United States, and then learning about, most of these countries are net importers in the Caribbean, right? Caribbean inclusive of Belize, inclusive of Costa Rica, inclusive of Guyana and Suriname. So they're net importers of clothing items, electronics, things of that nature. And just wondering how, and also started reading, right? So reading Dr. Walter Rodney, who was a Guyanese intellectual who was assassinated in 1980. reading Eric Williams' History of the Caribbean, reading about different labor strikes. There's a great media outlet called Tenement Yard Media. They're based in Kingston and do a lot of history and current affairs. They have two. Lest We Forget is their historical podcast, and they have another one that covers current affairs in the Caribbean.
Send me that information.
Yeah, they're great. And I've had the privilege of meeting some of the producer in Jamaica and some of the journalists. And so I was like, well, if we're struggling here with product shortage and people struggling with, just sustaining themselves because they can't work, I can only imagine what it has to be like in the Caribbean. And so just started consuming more news. A cool thing about COVID was that a lot of the conversations that would have been held in St. Augustine or at Mona are now being live streamed because they had to.
Right.
And so you're now getting access to like really good intellectuals in the Caribbean. And so started this thing called Beyond the Beach, where friends of mine who I went to university with, we would be able to see how could we take our limited funds and start donating to the same causes or investing in the same companies. It's been challenging in terms of the one platform that we found in the Caribbean that you can do that like more vetted investments. It's more of you get paid back what you invest, but you don't make any profit off of it. It's called Kiva, but they only invest in the Spanish Caribbean, which is interesting. And then for a while they had Haiti, but I think since the assassination of President Jovenel Moise, that has ceased. So a lot of what was on the platform, those campaigns ended, but new campaigns haven't come back on. And I couldn't figure out why Kiva didn't operate in Jamaica, operate in the Bahamas, operate in Guyana. And so that's been, but we did I think $20,000 the first year, and then we did like another, I can't pick the number, but I think around like $15,000 the next year of crowdfunded investments, and then some of that also includes like side investments that I had done in the Caribbean. So there's a company, Farm Credibly, who provides microfinance for farmers in Jamaica. So I did some investment through them, and looking to do more. I've also learned how to become do a lot more due diligence before you invest in a company, because not every investment will work out, and that's the nature.
And that's the risk.
The nature of it, the risk and the reward of it is learning from learning. Okay, never lend money out if they don't have financials. Never lend money. So you look through, you just learn how to vet your investments more. But it was also what I realized Beyond the Beach was really going to become was a way for folks just to travel, because I have more risk tolerance than the average person. But it got people who are born and raised in Brooklyn, born and raised in Austin, born and raised in wherever, to have a real reason to go into the region. And when we go back, we meet with young professionals there.
Nice.
So it's Beyond the Beach, right? You're not just on a resort. It's meeting with people who live and work and do the same stuff you do in Chicago. They do it in Barbados, right?
Nice.
They do it. And so we haven't done a trips in 3 years now. So I want to do something this year. I'm thinking Grenada or Trinidad. But yeah, we've done some live streaming. So we did like a pitch night. We had startups from St. Lucia, from Trinidad, from Jamaica, and another country, Bahamas, who pitched their companies to an audience here.
Got it.
I've gotten really busy with work, so I've tailed off a lot, but I do want to get back into it. We started a study 2 years ago on the level of connectedness between the diaspora and the region, and so we want to make it longitudinal. So now we're 2 years out from that, and a lot has happened in the region, right? And you follow the news, a lot is happening in the region right now, and so we're hoping that data will be illustrative for the diaspora here, but also maybe instructive for policymakers. And I would call some of us who are running nonprofits and stuff like that to be calling ourselves policymakers, and also maybe it will inspire people in the region as well around how can we better leverage the community here,
the relationships,
to develop the economy there.
Absolutely. And you said you're busy with work, so we're gonna come back to the U.S. now. And I mentioned that's how I met you initially, was through the work that you do in the U.S. So I want you to talk about what inspires you to continue to do the work that you do in the U.S., because I know that's what really got you to take a look at the Caribbean through those lenses, right? So why are you in the business that you are in? And also talk about if is there Caribbean people that are actively seeking out the kind of resources that you can provide to them, and if not, why should they? So that's a loaded.
No, it's a very good question.
Loaded question.
Good question. It's like a doubles, right?
I know doubles, triples. You
ingredients
understand,
in
right?
that. When I first came back to I'm trying to do this quickly. Finished at Colgate University, worked for a year and 2 months in PR. Before that was at a startup for 2 months in Lower Manhattan, and then started building small business websites after I got laid off from my job in PR. And so I did that small business websites for 4 years. And so all of those experiences, like the accounts I was at in PR, I worked on the World Trade Center account, worked on the Rockefeller, watched the tower, like the Rockefeller Center lighting. I did the press, managed the press setup for that.
Nice.
And so I got to do some really cool accounts. New York Post was one of our clients at the firm I was at. And then from there, going to the opposite end of, talking to, bakeries and wine shops and like very neighborhood level businesses in doing work in Flatbush Junction, right? And so in learning how to make money for myself, right? And it was like, I think my first year on my own, I made $15,000 living for the whole year, living in New York City, like madness. And so that's my smallest waist size ever. And so that's the madness, but you learned a lot. You learned a lot, about how you become a problem solver, because you have to pay rent in 29 days. That's New York rent in 29 days. And then you also learn like how you have to get paid by these businesses who are constantly like, oh, come back next week. And then
I want to sell you a chicken. Give you a chicken.
Yeah, instead. Let me eat this instead. Right.
Yeah.
And then lastly, you learn the kind of you started to meet different types of companies. There was this one guy, a guy from Guyana. He ran a cricket blog in Queens, and we're trying to see how we could get advertisers from the region for his cricket blog in Queens. And it didn't work out well, but it did mean that I started forming like semi-professional relationships with people from Digicel and stuff like that in the Caribbean. And so learning what might interest these companies, and I felt all of that set me up for my time at Detroit Homecoming with Cranes. I was there. I did 3 or 4 homecomings, which is a really cool event where they bring back former Detroit residents who either have a lot of money, a lot of influence, or both, back to re-engage, reinvest with the city. And then from there, I went to the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. So I worked on the Motor City Match program for a number of years, and then since then I transitioned to helping them with special projects for small business. And so all of that, I feel like all of those experiences it taught me grit, taught me resourcefulness, and it re-engaged me with the Caribbean, right? And so yeah, that's it. I would say that we do get a number of Caribbean people who are either second or third generation, or a lot of immigrants too. And we've had some success with getting some Caribbean businesses grants through the Motor City Match program. I think there's more that can be done. If I had to give the biggest challenge that our community faces is because we're a lot of people who've come here got here through grit, and they had to go through some hard times. You're used to doing a lot of stuff by yourself. And so it's really important for the businesses that we start that very early we're identifying key partners and key resources. So that you're not just spending all of your own cash to get things done, or you're spinning your wheels in the mud when you really should be partnering with another entity to get access to that customer, to get access to those technical assistance resources, or whatever it may be that you need, that you're just paying out of pocket continuously.
So do you think fear has something to do with that, or just lack of knowledge? And how would we even start getting that information to our community? Would it be a marketing campaign of sort? Or how would we do it? Because our folks are on social media. So even if I send them an email about a workshop that you're doing, they're not going to the workshop. You know what I'm saying? So I'm wondering if we can think outside the box. How do we get them now engaged in realizing what resources are out there for them?
Well, one thing I would say is that in terms of attendance, I don't know if you know Tafari Roberts. I'm sure you.
Yeah.
So years ago, she and I started brainstorming on an event for I think it was going to call it like a Fiwi Ting or something like that. But basically, like, how do we have a English and Spanish language Caribbean event that gets people in front of resources and walks them through like some of the programs that could act to benefit them. I think even if you had 5 people come to that, that's a success, because if 3 of those people go on to not just be profitable but hit their revenue goals, that three successful businesses is great, right? Like, you know, we had one successful beef patty place who made beef patties from scratch again, like we used to have. That would be more than what we have now, right? There's a lady that we've met that's from Trinidad. She's moved here from Canada. She met a guy here, and she's trying to open a Trinidadian restaurant, right? How do we get? I would love to buy doubles. Right now, I drive 4 hours for doubles, right? So I think it's. I don't think it's fear, because people get started. It's that we try to do a lot of stuff on our own, and I think it's the mythology in America of like, if you just work hard enough, everything will work out, and that's not true.
Right.
You have to. It's relationships. It's not what you know. It's who you know.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of our organizations, I think I've seen some real act that you've been making the attempt to plug people in. Even some of the other organizations that are more long-standing have started showing up to events. I think it's incumbent upon people like myself to reach out more. And I think again, I'm going to go back to the challenge of a lot of the cities that Caribbean Americans are moving to do not, I don't think, have as robust small business services. And so Detroit, I feel, is investing a disproportionate amount of its resources into small business in comparison to a lot of other municipalities.
Cities, right.
Part of it is because we have to. We have a very old building stock, and so we need to create greater incentives to bring people here, and beating some of the stigma around Detroit. But if you're living in Redford or Farmington, and they don't have the same small business ecosystem that we have here, you may not qualify for some of the things, and then just geography, you spend less time here. Your church may not be here. You may not do your grocery shopping here. So you're just actually not running into ideas like you would in a big city. So I think there's room for training the trainers about what's available here. So making sure that the Caribbean leadership is aware that there's a Detroit Startup Fund. That if you have a technology driven, scalable business, you can get $15,000 or $50,000, and that application closes in a second. How many people know that we have a grant fund for Detroit residents ages 18 to 30 that gives you up to $10,000 for your business, right? But if the people that you listen to don't know that, then how would you know?
Absolutely.
And then the language barrier. Not all Caribbean, Anglo-chauvinism is a thing in our region.
Right.
Not all Caribbean people speak English.
Right.
Enough Jamaicans don't speak English that good, right?
I'm if tell you.
So I think,
but we have a lot of Haitians here. We have a lot of Dominicans
Spanish,
here. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, and unfortunately, because of the us as English speakers not being inclusive of the others, it sets us for less than success, I would say. Where, we have so much in common. Why would let that one thing, language, continue to be a barrier between us? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll add is that there's great opportunity for Caribbean businesses now. I think the current, and I listened to a very good conversation at the campus in Barbados. Is that Cave Hill? It's Cave Hill. Yeah, they had a expert in agriculture from Rwanda speaking, and she did a tour of Barbados, and she made a very good point. She says the Caribbean is never going to become, outside of Guyana, which is a big agricultural hub, the Caribbean is never going to become a big net exporter of raw fruits and vegetables, right? Because it's just the scale is not there for a number of reasons. We can put in more tractors and stuff like that. Which is a huge problem in the region, is farmers actually having access to modern equipment. But she says the Caribbean is going to be a great value add place. Countries like Trinidad and Tobago is a massive producer of crackers. A lot of the packaged snacks and stuff like that, if you look at the back of it, is made in Trinidad and Tobago, unless it comes from South America or something.
Even the Jamaican one then?
A big time, and a lot of Jamaican companies have been purchased by Trinidadian companies, right? And so she's saying that a lot of products could be imported from Africa or from Asia and finished in the Caribbean.
Almost repackaged kind of a thing, and put that stamp that says on there.
So there's a lot of opportunity for our companies, and even for West Caribbean people here. I think there's so much work being done around alternative uses of our like I had the chance to invest in a company that does hair extensions out of banana fibers, right? And we have history that shows that slaves, I think it was in St. Vincent, they have clothing that slaves had made out of banana fibers, right? And so the fact that there's people with gluten allergies in the United States, and that know you can make flour out of cassava, out of chickpea flour.
Stuff that we've been used to, right?
Young soursop is a fish substitute, a very good fish substitute in terms of texture if you want to do a fillet. So we have to, I think once we go back to reimagining ourselves,
that's it right there.
Reimagining what we have. I mean, Michael Manning gave a good talk based on his book Crisis in the Periphery. He says, how is it that you have an island nation and the national dishes, the key ingredients, are not grown in Jamaica, right? The sawfish fried dumpling, the flour comes from North America. The codfish is coming from North America or the North Sea in England, and yet we'll turn up our face at mackerel. And there's this, if you ever had a smoked marlin sandwich, it's delicious.
Right.
Delicious, but you have to tell yourself
reimagine
that this is just as good as salmon, right?
Absolutely.
So I think once we get to that place, a lot of us can use our professional experience in the Caribbean, in the United States and Canada to position the region for. And I think more of us are learning that we have to have an international lens for our future, because the environment that's being created here may not afford us the level of options that were available 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
And so we have to just have a more international focus.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And one of the things is we as Caribbean people, we live globally too. So, if we can live there, we can fix our home by living there.
Yeah.
Outside of just sending money, what I mean? Wiring money, which I think there's an issue with money.
Right now.
Which is a whole different conversation.
I'll add one more thing too. There's the first Prime Minister of Belize, I think Fred Price, he said the Caribbean is not a place, it's a spirit.
I agree.
So why is Belize a Caribbean city, which we would all agree that, Belize is a Caribbean nation, or Guyana is a Caribbean nation. Why isn't New Orleans or Mobile, Alabama a Caribbean nation?
That way. So, putting on your dreaming lens, your vision lens, you talk about seeing things differently as a people. What would creating legacy through community service look like for you when you think about the breadth of the connection that you have in the region? And when we talk, Bad Bunny talk about the Americas, right? When you think about from Canada all the way through the Caribbean, right? Yeah. What does that look like for you?
Bilingual, multilingual, honestly. I think if you really want to understand the Caribbean, you have to you need to go beyond English. I think international again. I think, there's a guy, he's from Trinidad, he's CUNY, Ramnur, I don't want to mess with the name, but it's a very long Indo-Caribbean name, Rumnarayan Singh, something, and he talks about the myth of return. So many Caribbean people say, I'm going to work here, work hard, and go back home, and he says they never do.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is not because it's the grind of being in America and only having the notion of vacation days, but it's also because you have children here and they're not plugging back into the region. And I actually think the region has to do a better job. But there are certain cultures that will go unnamed who do a very good job of making sure that their diaspora is plugging back into the country back home. They actually have literal organizations that is their mission, that you will make a trip back to that country.
And you will also speak that language.
I have a friend who got married, and when they got married, part of the marriage certificate was they were legally married in the United States, and they were also legally married in that country that they have never been a couple in, right? I don't think it needs to be as explicit as that, but I also think that that's how you build nation, right? Embracing our Creoles, right? How many Caribbean parents don't speak to their children in Creole? And we say Creole, like, oh, you Haitian? No, each island has
their own version, right? Yeah.
Creole
has a definition.
Patois is a Creole.
Yeah.
And not stop looking at Patois as a bad English. No, Patois, and if you deep it, there's versions of patois that are completely completely different from English, right?
Absolutely.
Cremante is the big what it's called in Jamaica, right? So if you embrace those from an earlier age, your kids understand, yes, I live in the United States, I'm a proud Detroiter, but I'm also just as connected to, not just as, but I'm also connected to Grenada, I'm also connected to Trinidad, and I can travel there. Do your kids have a passport? So that's something for vision for me is making
Yo, I had a conversation with some young ladies and they're raising their children here, and some of them said their kids didn't have passports. I was like, how can you, as a melanated person of an immigrant background, not have a passport? Because I remember once you're born, you get a passport.
Right.
You have a baby picture in your passport.
Right.
You know, so being global, being connected to where your family is from, I think is a great way to make sure that you're creating legacy. So now not only are they taking the dreams of their parents, they're also creating dreams of their own with their children.
Right. And I actually think that
we have this platform. I want us to put together a history class.
I think so, yeah.
You know what I mean? And we can choose a country, or we can choose a region, or we can choose an idea of what we want it to look like. And then we're going to have a virtual conversation similar to what we're having here, but we're going to invite people in the room.
Right.
So we'll do it on Facebook, or we'll do it on Zoom, or whatever, just to start that concept of look at the Caribbean through a different lens. Let's start with the history.
Right.
And we'll choose a topic, or you can choose a book, or we can choose an individual, and we can start there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So
exhibit first from cricket, and then we'll do a
two of them.
And then maybe you can start
A movie night.
One of my favorite films is Harder They Come.
Yeah.
And you can watch the Harder They Come, but then also look at what was Jamaica
Dissect
like
it.
at that time. Because there's
Dissect
some
it.
very interesting
Absolutely.
political motifs in Harder They Come that are very interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jamaica's the fact that Jamaica that we have in our heads is a very different place than what
Jamaica really is.
Books, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the rest of the Caribbean is like that.
So, Amma, thank you for your time. We can go on and talk about, especially talking to you, you know, you're just open up so many ideas in my mind as we're thinking about this. I'm like, okay, I know we have our 5 signature items for this year already, but what else can I add? What else can I add? And who am I going to tag in to make sure this happens, right? So Yelena is with us tonight.
Yes,
so if you hear somebody coughing and laughing in the background, it's Yelena.
Yeah.
She's
big
in
up.
charge of the camera.
Big up, Mr.
But she's working on a professional development workshop for the Caribbean Community Service Center. And we're going to tap into you to help us with that networking portion of it, right? From a resource standpoint. So we'll keep you abreast of what's going on, make sure we can get into your schedule, because we ain't changing our schedule.
Yeah.
So we'll give it a date to make sure you can lock in. So what I want you to do now is just give us some parting words about what you thought about the interview, where you think we could go as an organization with this platform, and then also if somebody was interested into reaching out to you to find out about the Beyond the Beach or something that you're working on, how would they reach you?
I mean, I've taken social media off my phone, but I can be reached if you look me up on LinkedIn or Instagram. Instagram especially, LinkedIn especially, I can be reached you there.
And at LinkedIn, they reach you at
Medvis Jackson.
Yeah, Medvis Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a website too. We have it. It's basically just a standing landing page. It's not much on it, but beyondthebeach.org is a website.
But you have a contact us.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we have a contact us page. You can email us.
Okay.
Part of me wants to get back onto social media for Beyond the Beach, but I think we're mostly going to just constrain just to get our newsletter, just because you can only do so much.
Right.
And the newsletter, what the newsletter does is it does a roundup of Caribbean economic and business news from that month.
Okay.
So it gives you.
I think I actually subscribe.
Yeah,
to
you should get it.
newsletter,
Yeah. So I definitely want to get that back up and going and just focus our efforts there, because whether you're JLP, PNP, this is what the economics are happening in the
Caribbean
right now. Caribbean, Guyana, Trinidad, Puerto Rico. But my parting words I would say is, A, you're a fantastic interviewer, because I can go off. B, but trust your, there's a saying in cricket, trust your defense.
Mm-hmm.
So, because in cricket, once you get bowled down or caught, you're out. It's not like baseball, you come back again. So you say trust your defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trust your history. The things, you understand, like Caribbean food, like the way roti in the Caribbean is made, is not like, it's only a few places like Mauritius and places like that, you'll see it made that way. And that comes through experience.
Mm-hmm.
The way a lot of our dishes are made, it comes through instinct.
Mm-hmm.
It actually, sometimes our cooks have to get better at writing their recipes down and make. So I would say trust your culture. A lot of the things that your forebears, your foreparents put into you, they came through struggle and they came through science. Honestly, they realized this is what works. This is what gets you ahead. And so and when I say trust it, don't abandon it. Let it inspire you. Let it inform the future. And when you trust it, you also know that, okay, this serves me to a point. Mm-hmm. So the way that the culture I was raised with at home doesn't have to be the culture I carry forward. It can evolve. Mm-hmm. There's parts of Jamaican culture that we know have to grow up, right? I won't get into all of the, but there's some attitudes and behaviors that we know, okay, you know what, that's part of our culture, but
right. It don't serve us. Mm-hmm.
Right, so it's time for us to grow up a little bit.
Right.
And so I think that's what understanding your culture, and then that's also understanding your history too.
I agree.
Because you realize, what does it really mean to Jamaican? Because last quote, Juno Diaz says that he talked about Dominican Republic identity. Mm-hmm. He says we have this, through dictators and the U.S. intervention, we learned this in Spanish colonialism, political this idea of purity. Mm-hmm. He says the notion of purity is fictional. There is no purity, right? To be Dominican is also to be Haitian. Mm-hmm. And in Dominican history is also tied into Jamaican history, especially around the 60s. Mm-hmm. And so we
are connected.
We have to be international. We have to be internationalists.
Connected.
We cannot be like, oh, this is not Jamaican, I don't want to deal with it. No, like try something new. Right? Try some Haitian food. Right. Dig into Bahamian history. Dig into understand how, again, Caracas and these other cities that may not speak English are also tied to the Caribbean region. Right. So that also makes the Caribbean more fun, in my opinion.
I agree. That's why I love the Caribbean. Before I travel anywhere else, I'll hit up every Caribbean country. Yep. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, looking forward to working with you this year.
Absolutely. Yay, if you show up.
I will show up. I was at the one party. Oh my